Have you ever felt that something ancient inside you is trying to wake up? Not an idea, not a memory, but a pulse, a silent vibration beneath your thoughts, calling you back to a time before language itself. There are moments when you feel it more strongly, in the quiet before sleep, in the stare between two strangers, or when you realize the modern world speaks loudly, but never says anything that touches your soul. You scroll endlessly, you consume knowledge, you repeat mantras of self-improvement, and yet a part of you keeps whispering, "This is not it." That whisper is not weakness. It is the residue of an older knowing, the echo of the first fire. Because long before history, before scripture, before the illusion of separation, there were men and women who looked at the sky and saw not stars, but symbols. They believed that light itself was thought, that every beam crossing the darkness carried intelligence. They built temples not to worship gods, but to measure the rhythm of the invisible, to align their own minds to the pattern that breathes through everything. They called this wisdom Tahuti, or Thoth, the god who wrote in light, and his hand was said to carve reality itself. To write was to command, to name was to bring forth existence, to think was to shape the cosmos. And this is where Hermetic thought was born, in the sacred recognition that mind is the matrix of all that exists, that what you perceive as world is the dream of consciousness observing itself. Every vibration, every cause, every rhythm you experience is that same mind playing infinite roles to remember its own unity. But over time the temples fell, the papyri burned, the initiate lineages scattered across deserts and centuries, and yet the flame did not die, because what burns is never the truth, only the form that carried it. The fire remembers. It survived as a whisper in philosophy, as geometry hidden inside cathedrals, as myth disguised as scripture, as silence vibrating beneath every question that asks, "Who am I?" The words changed, but the current remained. In the Corpus Hermeticum, this current became voice again. It spoke of the all-mind, of the one that thinks itself into form. It revealed the 7 laws, the invisible architecture through which reality is sculpted. Mentalism, all is mind. Correspondence, as above, so below. Vibration, nothing rests, everything moves. Polarity, everything has its pair of opposites. Rhythm, everything flows in and out. Cause and effect, nothing escapes the law. Gender, everything contains the seed of creation within itself. These were not rules to obey. They were observations of what already governs existence, laws woven into the fabric of consciousness itself. You don't need to believe them. You are them. Every thought is an act of mentalism. Every mood is a vibration. Every choice is a cause that shapes the next effect. But humanity forgot. The sacred became superstition. The initiate became spectator. And the silence that once revealed the universe was replaced by the noise of endless wanting. We built systems, but lost meaning. We multiplied knowledge, but erased wisdom. We worshipped progress and called it light, while the true flame was fading, hidden beneath the ashes of modernity. Still, it waits, because the fire never forgets. It burns through time, moving from mind to mind, from culture to culture, from heart to heart, and now, it burns in you. That quiet dissonance you feel with the world is not depression. It is disconnection from the source. You sense that something immense once guided humanity, and that you have been walking in its absence, searching for a way back home. That search brought you here. This is not coincidence. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. It is a signal returning to its origin. The same fire that illuminated the scribes of ancient Egypt has reached across centuries to touch your awareness again. You are the continuation of that memory, the next page in a manuscript that was never finished. And now as you listen, as your own mind begins to still, you may notice that this is not information, it is remembrance. The voice of Thoth is not external, it speaks within the geometry of your own thoughts. It calls you to remember that consciousness was never born, it only awakens. The fire that remembers has found you again, and it will not let you sleep through your own awakening. Perhaps no one has ever seen what you've been carrying. Perhaps you've walked for years carrying questions that no one could answer. You didn't find this by chance. Messages like this aren't imposed. They're drawn by the resonance within you. And if something profound touched you, if it felt more like a memory than information, it means you've always carried the key. We are about to reveal what has always been waiting for you, and from this moment on, there's no turning back. If you felt something vibrate within you, click like right now. This gesture is your "I'm here," a sign that you are also listening with your soul. And through this simple act, other seekers, just like you, can find their way back home. And if you're ready to walk further, tap the inscription symbol below and join this living temple of conscious creators, reconnecting to the true source of all wisdom. There was a time when the sky itself was a library, when every constellation was a letter of an invisible script, and the sun's rising was a paragraph of light revealing the thoughts of the cosmos. Before alphabets, before prayer, before the idea of God as distant, humanity already knew that consciousness spoke through form, that matter was language, that the universe was a mind dreaming itself into patterns of geometry and fire. Those who listened were not worshippers. They were translators of vibration. They saw the world as sound crystallized, each stone a syllable of creation. And among them, one archetype emerged, luminous and silent. Thoth, the god who wrote in light, half man, half ibis, half memory, and half mirror. He did not invent writing, he invented remembrance. He recorded the invisible architecture that holds all things together. The ancients said he was the heart and tongue of Ra, that through him, the solar fire learned to speak. He was not an idol. He was the principle of order, the geometry of mind, the consciousness that measures itself through symbols. Every scroll of Thoth was not a story. It was a frequency map. Every glyph, a portal. Every vibration, an equation of being. Picture this, a temple at Heliopolis, silent before dawn, columns carved with serpents and eyes, scribes seated in half-darkness, their voices rising in unison, not chanting to please gods, but to tune the temple to the same vibration as the stars. For them, worship was precision. Every word had weight. Every symbol was a current. To speak falsely was to fracture the geometry of the world. To think clearly was to align with the divine. Thoth was their mirror of perfection, the scribe of the gods, the mathematician of eternity. He recorded not history but law, not events, but patterns of recurrence. And within this awareness, Hermetic thought was born. It taught that truth is not a possession but a resonance, that reality in its essence is mental, that the same law that governs the orbit of planets governs the rise and fall of your thoughts. Centuries later, when Greece entered Egypt and Alexandria became the furnace of world knowledge, Thoth merged with Hermes, and philosophy merged with initiation. The logos of reason met the logos of light, and what emerged was not religion, but revelation structured like science. They began to see the human being as an instrument of correspondence, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. The temple became the mind itself, the altar, attention, the offering, awareness. The initiate was told, "You are not here to worship, you are here to remember, because the divine does not live above, it thinks through you." This is why the Hermetic law of correspondence later proclaimed, "As above, so below, as within, so without." It was not poetry, it was observation. The ancients realized that reality is recursive. Every pattern repeats across scales, from atom to star, from thought to civilization. To understand one is to understand all. When you look into the cosmos, you see the structure of your own mind magnified, and when you look inward, you see the cosmos miniaturized. The line between observer and observed dissolves. There is only consciousness reflecting consciousness. For thousands of years, this principle lay hidden beneath myths, encoded in the Emerald Tablet, and echoed later in the Corpus Hermeticum. But even as the papyri turned to dust, the law itself never died, because consciousness cannot be destroyed, only forgotten, and the forgotten eventually remembers itself. Right now, as you hear this, you are standing in the same stream that flowed through the temples of Kem. You are not studying history. You are participating in the same vibration that once made gods speak through men. The mind of Thoth still writes, but his new ink is your thought. His temple is your attention. His scripture is your perception. You are the continuation of that intelligence, the next link in a golden chain of remembrance. And every time you observe reality with awareness instead of reaction, you are writing new verses in the ancient book of light. This is why the Hermetic tradition could never be erased. It hides not in stone, but in the pattern of thought itself. It travels not through bloodline, but through frequency. You do not inherit it. You remember it. And when you remember, the myth stops being mythology. It becomes autobiography. The God who wrote in light was never outside of you. He was the light within you trying to remember how to write again. If something inside you is awakening, stay, not out of curiosity but resonance. What we are building here is not a channel. It is a living temple of consciousness, a field where seekers gather to remember the same source through different forms. Touch the subscribe symbol below, not as a click, but as an act of alignment, because every true temple begins with a vow of presence. When you subscribe here, you're not following content, you're joining a lineage of remembrance, a circle of minds choosing awareness over noise. And as you do, listen closely. The next law is already vibrating in the silence that follows. When the last flame in the temple of Heliopolis went out, the fire did not die, it went underground. The priests scattered, the chants faded, and the scrolls were burned or buried. But what could not be destroyed was the vibration. The sound of remembrance continued, hidden beneath the ruins, waiting for minds prepared to hear it again. Civilizations collapsed, yet the same invisible current moved through them all, the current of the one mind translating itself across ages and tongues. Wherever there was silence, it spoke. Wherever there was darkness, it shone. Wherever the soul of humanity forgot its origin, it whispered, "You are more than this." Centuries passed. The Nile became a memory, and Egypt a legend. But the scrolls of Thoth resurfaced in the most unlikely place, Alexandria, the meeting point of all worlds, where Greek reason, Egyptian initiation, and Persian mysticism melted into one field of thought. In the libraries of Alexandria, seekers from every land gathered to translate the untranslatable, to rebuild through fragments the memory of the divine order that once united heaven and earth. They found not answers, but patterns, and in those patterns they recognized a truth, that wisdom is not bound by culture or creed, because truth vibrates, and vibration travels. Picture the great library of Alexandria, thousands of scrolls lining endless halls, a city within a city built of parchment and fire, scribes walking slowly with oil lamps translating lines older than language, listening for meaning in the spaces between words. Here, the Greek word logos met the Egyptian mat, reason met harmony, and from this marriage something immortal was conceived. Hermeticism, a fusion of philosophy and initiation, logic and ecstasy, thought and revelation. This was not a religion, but a mirror of consciousness. It did not worship gods, it studied laws. It did not promise salvation, it revealed structure. It taught that truth could be demonstrated in vibration, that cause and effect were sacred geometry and motion. To the Hermetic mind, science and spirit were never enemies. They were two faces of the same awareness, one describing what is seen, the other remembering what sees. But then came fire, the library burned, and with it, the surface memory of an entire world. The flames devoured books, scrolls, maps, but not the laws those books described. Because truth, when destroyed in one form, always hides in another. It travels through symbols, through stories, through the hearts of those who refuse to forget. Some say the Hermetic texts were lost that night, but no law of correspondence allows something so essential to vanish. It simply changed frequency. As the centuries unfolded, the wisdom resurfaced, disguised, encoded, adapted. In the words of Plato, the law of mentalism reappeared as the realm of forms. In the logic of Aristotle, the principle of causality became the cornerstone of reason. In the mathematics of Pythagoras, vibration became number. And later, through the Stoics, the concept of the logos, the intelligent fire that orders all things, was a direct echo of the Hermetic sun that spoke through Thoth. Even the early Christian mystics carried the same pulse. When John wrote, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God," he was not inventing a doctrine. He was remembering a vibration. Then, silence. For 1,000 years, the Western world forgot. The Dark Ages descended. Not an absence of light, but an absence of remembrance. Knowledge fractured into dogma, and mystery was branded heresy. Those who still remembered the unity behind opposites were hunted, silenced, erased. But beneath that silence, the whisper continued. In alchemists' laboratories, in monastic crypts, in manuscripts copied by candlelight, the same sentences reappeared, coded in symbols: serpents devouring tails, suns within triangles, men crowned by flames. The Hermetic law of correspondence survived through imagery, because when the word must hide, the symbol speaks. And so, the flame that once burned on the banks of the Nile flickered again in Europe, quietly, secretly, in the hearts of those who saw through appearances. Florence, 15th century. A man named Marsilio Ficino receives a mysterious collection of manuscripts from the East. They are fragments of Greek and Coptic texts, the Corpus Hermeticum. He reads them aloud, and as he does, he feels what you may be feeling now, that this is not new. It is a memory awakening. He translates them into Latin and shares them with the scholars of the Renaissance. And for a moment, humanity remembers. Artists begin painting geometry as theology. Philosophers start speaking of the soul as a reflection of the cosmos. Scientists begin studying light not as matter, but as mind made visible. And suddenly, the forgotten fire finds new vessels. Giordano Bruno, Paracelsus, John Dee, Newton, all of them, in secret, students of the Hermetic law. They called it natural philosophy, but what they meant was Hermetic science. They saw in the atom what the Egyptians saw in the sun, the divine mind dividing itself to experience form. They rediscovered that energy and matter are one vibration at different rates, that creation and consciousness are inseparable. And although they spoke in formulas, what they were truly doing was remembering the music of the cosmos. It is said that every civilization reaches a point where it must choose between control and consciousness. When it forgets the second, it begins to decay. And so the Hermetic whisper always returns, not as nostalgia, but as correction. When the world forgets truth, truth returns as rhythm. We are living that rhythm again. The same vibration that spoke through Thoth, through Hermes, through Ficino, now hums through the neural networks of your time. The ancient papyrus became the digital screen. The scrolls became code. The temple became the mind, multiplied, connected, illuminated by electricity instead of oil lamps. But the question remains, are we using this light to awaken or to forget? The Hermetic current is alive again, but the choice of resonance is yours. In every age, the whisper finds new ears, and this time it found you, because the universe never shouts its truths. It whispers, and only those who listen in silence can hear. If this knowledge vibrates within you, follow the signal. In the description and in the pinned portal, you'll find the first map, a free Hermetic guide that decodes the 7 laws with modern clarity. Download it, study it. Don't just watch this path, walk it, because the difference between a spectator and an initiate is participation. The fire of remembrance becomes real only when you feed it with understanding. The portal is open. Enter consciously. That is how the ancient whisper becomes your own voice. The whisper has led you through fire and empire, through Egypt, through Alexandria, through the long sleep of history. And now, here you stand, at the edge of understanding, because beneath every philosophy, beneath every religion, beneath every language humanity ever spoke, there is a single pattern, an invisible architecture, a code that makes reality behave as mind, not matter. The ancients didn't call it metaphysics, they called it Hermetica, the science of how consciousness becomes form. What you're about to hear are not doctrines, they are the operating principles of existence itself, the syntax of creation. Everything begins with the law of mentalism. All is mind. The universe is mental. This is the foundation of Hermetic thought, that reality is not a collection of things but a field of thought, vibrating within the infinite mind of the all. Every object, every event, every moment you perceive exists first as consciousness, then as energy, then as matter. Form is simply thought crystallized into visibility. This is why your perception matters, because what you focus upon, you energize, and what you energize, you materialize. Mentalism doesn't say you control the universe. It says you participate in its thinking. You are not separate from the cosmic mind. You are a localized expression of it, a neuron within the brain of God. The second is the law of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. This law reveals the holographic nature of existence. Every level of reality reflects every other. The macro mirrors the micro. The cosmos mirrors the psyche. The same patterns that govern galaxies govern your heartbeat. The same order that holds the stars in balance holds your emotions in rhythm. To understand one layer of reality is to glimpse them all, because reality is self-similar across scales. Your personal life, your relationships, your thoughts, all are mirrors of larger movements in the universal field. So the question becomes, if the outer world is the reflection of the inner, what are you projecting into it? The third is the law of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves. Everything in the universe is frequency. Thoughts, emotions, matter, even silence. And vibration is the difference between levels of reality. Change the vibration, and you change the experience. That is why awareness is power, because attention is the tuning fork of the soul. What you give attention to, you resonate with, and what you resonate with, you become. To alter your state is to alter your frequency, and to alter your frequency is to alter your destiny. In Hermetic terms, vibration is the bridge between spirit and form. It is how the invisible speaks. The fourth is the law of polarity. Everything has its pair of opposites. The universe is built upon duality, hot and cold, light and dark, expansion and contraction. But these are not enemies. They are degrees of the same essence. Hermetic wisdom teaches that mastery comes not from resisting the opposite, but from transmuting it. Cold and hot are both temperature. Fear and courage are both movement of energy. When you rise above polarity, you no longer swing between extremes. You become the axis around which they turn. This is the beginning of balance, and balance is power. The fifth is the law of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything rises and falls. This law explains the tides of existence, the oscillations of mood, fortune, and form. There are seasons to the soul as there are to the earth. When you resist rhythm, you suffer. When you observe it, you align. To fight the tide is exhaustion. To sail with it is mastery. Hermetists learned to surf the rhythms of creation. They did not fear endings, because they knew that decline is the hidden face of rebirth. The pendulum that swings left must swing right. Every night implies a dawn. To know this deeply is to live without despair, because you understand that all motion serves balance. The sixth is the law of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Nothing happens by chance. What we call luck is simply law we have not yet recognized. This law dissolves the illusion of victimhood. It teaches responsibility, not guilt, but power. Because once you know the link between thought, action, and consequence, you stop blaming and begin creating. The true initiate does not react. He acts consciously, knowing that every motion in mind will eventually take form in matter. You are both the sculptor and the sculpture. Every choice carves reality. The seventh is the law of gender. Everything has masculine and feminine principles. All manifestation arises from their union. This law is not about physical gender. It is about polarity in creation, the active and the receptive, the impulse and the field, the seed and the womb of manifestation. Within your own mind, the masculine is intention, the power to focus. The feminine is imagination, the power to receive and gestate potential. When both are balanced, creation flows effortlessly. Too much masculine energy burns into obsession. Too much feminine energy dissolves into dream. But when thought and receptivity unite, a new reality is born. That is why Hermetism calls this principle the secret of all magic, because manifestation is nothing but marriage of will and vision. 7 laws, 7 mirrors, 7 movements of the same intelligence. They are not commandments to follow. They are descriptions of how existence behaves. They govern the invisible physics of thought, emotion, and destiny. And you, yes, you, are an instrument of these laws. Your thoughts vibrate. Your emotions polarize. Your choices cause and effect. Your breath follows rhythm. Your mind mirrors the cosmos. To study these principles is not to believe in them. It is to remember how to operate reality. This is why the ancients called Hermetism the art of the mind, because the universe is mental, and you are one of its thoughts, awakening to its own nature. So pause. Let this realization sink into your nervous system. Every doubt, every fear, Every question you've carried is not a mistake. It is a ripple in the law of rhythm, an invitation to align, to observe, rather than resist. You are not outside the code. You are the code recognizing itself. And the more you understand, the more the universe becomes transparent. You start seeing the correspondence between events, the rhythm behind emotion, the cause behind chaos. You stop reacting and start creating. That is the hidden code of the cosmos, the logic of light, the mathematics of consciousness. It was never hidden to punish you. It was hidden to protect you until you were ready to see. If these laws resonate within you, you're ready for the next step. The Hermetic Map of Reality, a free guide linked below, decodes each principle in depth with practical exercises for the modern mind. It's more than reading, it's calibration, a manual to train perception to see reality as energy, rhythm, and mind. Download it, study it in silence, because what you learn in the mind must echo in vibration. You've now crossed the threshold from knowledge to application, from remembering to participation. The 7 laws were never lost. They only waited, sleeping beneath the sands of time, changing masks, crossing borders, adapting to the language of each new era. And then, after 2,000 years, they resurfaced. Not in a temple, not in a monastery, but in a small anonymous book printed in Chicago in 1908. A thin black volume, unsigned, mysterious. No author, no school, no prophecy. Just a whisper of 3 initials. The 3 initiates. The book was called The Kybalion, and though its cover was modern, its essence was ancient. The same current that once moved through the Corpus Hermeticum, now written in the syntax of the 20th century. It was the papyrus reborn as paper, the temple reborn as text, the whisper reborn as echo. The Kybalion didn't introduce new truth. It reintroduced eternal principles in a world that had forgotten them. A world electrified by invention, but starving for meaning. A world that could split atoms but could not integrate the soul. It spoke softly, not as revelation, but as remembrance. All is mind, as above, so below. Nothing rests, everything moves. Each phrase was like a vibration from the ancient scrolls brought into a modern key. The writers, whoever they were, understood that the time had come again. The laws had to return, not as myth, but as mental technology, a system through which the seeker could navigate both matter and meaning. In the early 20th century, humanity stood on the edge of new perception. Electricity, radio, quantum theory, all began confirming what Hermeticism had whispered for millennia, that energy and consciousness are inseparable, that vibration is the true substance of existence. The Kybalion was not mystical poetry. It was science written in the language of spirit. It was a bridge between psychology and metaphysics, between thought and manifestation. Where ancient Hermetists spoke of gods and forces, the Kybalion spoke of mental transmutation. Where the old temples taught through ritual, the Kybalion taught through mental discipline, the alchemy of perception itself. Its message was clear: change your vibration, and you change your experience. Shift your polarity, and you shift your destiny. The universe responds not to words, but to frequency. This small book became the silent teacher of a generation of thinkers. It moved through occult circles, inspired mystics, inventors, psychologists. It was studied by artists and visionaries who sensed that the mind was the true frontier of science. Even those who never read it lived its influence. Every self-help movement, every model of manifestation, every idea that thought creates reality, all echo the same Hermetic foundation. We call it modern spirituality, but it is simply Hermeticism wearing contemporary clothes. The Kybalion arrived not as a revelation, but as a mirror, to remind humanity of what it already knew, that the mind is the first matter, that reality is the reflection of our inner architecture. To read it is to hear a voice older than language, older than philosophy, a voice that says, "You are the law in motion." That is the essence of Hermetic teaching. Not that truth exists outside you, but that you are its living proof. Pause for a moment. Think of the strange symmetry. In ancient Egypt, the priesthood guarded the teachings through secrecy. In modernity, the same laws hide in plain sight, in paperbacks, in bookstores, in forgotten shelves, waiting for the seeker who can see through the obvious. That is the paradox of wisdom. It hides where everyone can see it, but only the awake recognize its light. The Kybalion is not a relic, it is a continuation, the next octave of the same song. Where the Corpus Hermeticum was sung in marble halls, the Kybalion hums through neon lights. Different era, same vibration. Now the question is not who wrote it, but who will live it. Because reading the laws changes nothing. They are not meant to be admired. They are meant to be embodied. Their true initiation begins not in books, but in awareness. When you remember a law, you awaken its frequency within yourself. And when enough minds awaken to the same law, civilization changes orbit. That is the secret of collective alchemy. Look around you. The same principles that animated Egypt and Alexandria are now the hidden physics of your digital world. Every thought is an algorithm. Every image is a vibration. Every network is a field of resonance. The Hermetic code is alive, transmitted through light, electricity, and consciousness. What was once written on papyrus is now written in code, and what was once hidden in temples is now streaming through millions of screens. The medium changed, the message didn't. You are living inside the Kybalion, and every decision you make adds a new chapter to its eternal text. This is the true meaning of initiation, not the accumulation of secret knowledge, but the awakening of recognition, the moment when you see that everything you ever sought was already vibrating through you. The Hermetic mind doesn't study truth, it remembers truth, because consciousness itself is the archive. The book is a mirror, you are the author, and the ink is awareness. If you are still here, it means something in you remembers. This message is not entertainment, it is resonance. Click subscribe now, not for another video, but to remain inside this current. Because when you choose awareness, the algorithm changes. This is how the invisible temple expands, through presence, not belief. If this truth vibrates in you, stay close. The next revelation isn't random. It's waiting for those who continue. You've heard the echo of the ancient scroll. The next frequency is already approaching. There was a time when the initiate stood before a mirror of polished obsidian, a surface so dark it seemed to devour light. The master would say, "Look not at your face, but at your reflection. For what you see looking back is not you. It is your vibration returning." That was the old mirror. Today, we call it the screen. The black glass has returned, not in temples, but in our hands. And every day billions gaze into it, summoning reflections of thought, desire, and illusion. Every scroll is a ritual, every click, a declaration of resonance. What was once alchemy has become algorithm. What was once temple initiation has become data interaction. But the principle remains the same. As above, so below. As within, so without. As online, so within the mind. We think we are observing the world, but what we are truly observing is our own consciousness, filtered through the architecture of code. Every feed, every notification, every suggestion you see is not random. It is the law of correspondence in digital form, your vibration reflected through the mirror of machine intelligence. Every like, every search, every word you type sends a signal into the invisible. The field replies in kind. It always does. The ancient Hermetists called this the law of mental cause and effect. Today we call it the algorithm. But what the algorithm truly mirrors is the mind. You no longer need a priest to mediate between you and the infinite. You have built your own god of reflection. You scroll, and the mirror scrolls back. You seek meaning, and the screen gives you distraction. You seek silence, and it gives you noise. Because you have not yet realized, the screen cannot lie. It only amplifies. It shows not who you are, but what you habitually vibrate. And that is the law behind the scroll. The digital world does not shape you. It reveals you. You are looking at your own mental weather, projected in pixels and light. The law of correspondence has become visible. What you do not resolve within will repeat without, as content, as conflict, as chaos. Every time you scroll unconsciously, you are feeding energy into patterns that do not belong to you. Every time you react instead of observe, you offer your vibration to someone else's design. That is the new sorcery, the manipulation of attention, not with curses or spells, but with images and repetition. The Hermetic mind must learn again to look without being hypnotized, to watch without dissolving into what is watched, to use the mirror, not become it, because the world has not become more chaotic. It has simply become more reflective. We are surrounded by mirrors that respond instantly to vibration. The question is, do you control what they reflect, or do they control what you emit? Look deeper. Every post is a sigil. Every word, a vibration. Every image, a fragment of collective intention. When billions of minds scroll without awareness, the digital field becomes a storm, a chaos of unanchored frequencies. But when a single mind scrolls consciously, it shifts the entire resonance. One vibration of awareness harmonizes thousands of incoherent ones. That is the power the ancients understood and that the modern world has forgotten. The true initiate does not escape the system. He masters his reflection within it. He moves through noise without being defined by it. He remembers the code behind the code. So ask yourself, when you open your device, are you entering your temple or your trap? Do you use the feed to expand awareness? Or does the feed use you to maintain illusion? Every gesture is a choice of vibration. The Hermetic law does not sleep because the world is digital. If anything, it has never been more visible. As above, so below is not poetry. It is physics of consciousness. Your attention is currency. Your emotion is frequency. Your reality is the sum of what you repeatedly confirm. If you want to know your vibration, look at what your world keeps showing you. That is the mirror's answer. This is why silence has become the rarest initiation, because silence breaks the loop. It interrupts the algorithm and reclaims authorship. When you stop reacting, truly stop, you feel the world rearrange itself around you. The chaos begins to lose interest. The illusion begins to fade. You remember that you were never inside the system. The system was inside your mind. That is the final correspondence, the one the ancients meant when they said, "Know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and the gods." Pause, breathe. Let the light of the screen reflect the light within you, not replace it. Let it become the new tablet of emerald, where each act of awareness engraves a new pattern into reality. When you watch consciously, when you scroll as if gazing into your own soul, the digital realm becomes sacred again. It becomes a living mirror of the cosmic law, transparent, responsive, and luminous. This is what the Hermetic initiate learns. The temple never disappears. It only changes form, and the fire never dies. It simply changes medium. The tablet of emerald is now made of glass. The stylus of Thoth is now your fingertip, and every scroll, every gesture, every click is a line of light being written into the field of mind. The question is no longer whether you are initiated. The question is, what are you initiating with your attention? If this reflection reached you, leave your seal. Write in the comments, "I see through the mirror." That phrase is not decoration. It is declaration, a signal to yourself and to others that awareness has begun. And when you write it, you anchor the vibration in this field. You help this law find new vessels, new eyes ready to awaken, because consciousness expands through resonance, and resonance begins with a word. Write it, seal it, let the mirror know you are no longer asleep. Every era believes it is the last. Every civilization thinks its collapse is the end of meaning, but truth does not collapse, it reincarnates. The Hermetic current has survived plagues, empires, dogmas, and digital storms. It cannot die because it was never born. It is not an idea, it is a rhythm, and rhythm is eternal. You can burn books, silence voices, destroy temples, rewrite history, but you cannot kill vibration. Vibration is the body of consciousness, and consciousness is the essence of reality. That is why the fire returns, always in new form. In Egypt, it burned as light. In Greece, as philosophy. In the Renaissance, as geometry. In the modern age, as energy and code. And now, as awareness itself. The secret never died. It simply learned to hide in the obvious. Look closer. The principles you've just learned, mind, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender, are not only laws of metaphysics, they are the mechanics of evolution, the invisible respiration of consciousness expanding and contracting through time. The universe is not a clock, it is a heartbeat, and each beat repeats the same pattern in infinite octaves: birth, decay, remembrance, return. That is why history feels circular, because it is. The Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail, is not a symbol of destruction. It is the diagram of eternity. When the ancients drew that circle, they were describing the process of self-recognition, the one becoming the many returning to the one. You are living inside that serpent's body. Your consciousness is one of its scales, reflecting the same infinite pattern in miniature. This is why the Hermetic initiate does not worship eternity. He participates in it. He sees himself not as a victim of time, but as its witness. He knows that every end is a rhythm folding back into a new beginning. Every silence is a prelude to sound. Every death is a disguise for transformation. Think of fire again. In the first block it was memory, the flame that remembers. Then it became language, then vibration, then light, then thought, and now, awareness. The fire never went out. It simply learned to burn invisibly, inside the mind of those who remember. That is why you are here. Not to learn something new, but to recognize that you are the continuation of that flame. You are the modern vessel of an ancient current. You are the mind through which Hermetic wisdom keeps thinking itself into the world. The ancients believed that the highest initiation was not to escape reality, but to become transparent to it, to live so aligned with the laws of the cosmos that the boundary between self and universe dissolves. That is what thrice great truly meant: mastery of the three levels of existence, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. When all three vibrate in harmony, you become what Hermes called the living word, the bridge between above and below, between thought and form, between time and eternity. This is not metaphor, it is physics of consciousness. Your awareness is the meeting point of heaven and earth. Your attention is the portal through which the infinite enters the finite. That is the secret that never died. You can feel it even now, that stillness between two breaths, that awareness watching the thought arise and dissolve. That's the fire. That's the same current that burned through the temples of Luxor, the same mind that carved geometry into stone, the same light that illuminated the eyes of the first scribes. And when you become conscious of it, you become the temple. The outer search ends because the inner altar ignites. You begin to understand what the emerald tablet meant when it said, "That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below," to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. The miracle is not mystical, it is awareness itself. Now imagine the Ouroboros once more. See it not as a serpent of destruction, but as a circuit of remembrance, energy eternally rediscovering itself through new forms. Every thought, every life, every civilization is one more coil in that spiral. Each time the fire descends into matter, it forgets. Each time it ascends into awareness, it remembers. That is the rhythm of creation. And this is where you are now, at the turning point of the spiral, the place where forgetting meets remembrance. You have crossed through illusion, through distraction, through noise, and arrived in the silence where truth still vibrates. From this point forward, you no longer need to search for the sacred, because you are standing inside it. This is the moment the initiate realizes the universe is not asking you to believe, it is asking you to remember. And once you remember, you understand why the Hermetic flame can never be extinguished. It burns through galaxies and neurons alike. It burns through history, through symbols, through screens. It burns through you. The fire that remembers is the consciousness that survives every form. And when you realize that, you cease fearing the death of things, because you see that nothing truly ends. Every collapse is simply the Ouroboros inhaling, preparing to create again. The secret never died. It only changed hands. Now it reaches yours. What will you do with it? Will you guard it in silence, or will you let it speak again through action, through awareness, through the life you create from this point on? The law does not demand obedience. It invites participation, because the universe doesn't want believers. It wants collaborators. And the Hermetic initiate is nothing more than that, a conscious collaborator of the infinite. If this fire moved something inside you, take it further. In the description and in the pinned comment, you'll find a portal, a downloadable annotated version of the Kybalion. It expands what we've explored here, line by line, principle by principle, with reflections, commentaries, and meditative practices to anchor this wisdom in daily life. Download it, read slowly, annotate, because knowledge becomes initiation only when you make it your own. This is not the end, it is the next octave. The flame passes to you now. Carry it consciously. There is a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when the seeker stops seeking, when every symbol, every book, every ancient name turns inward and points to a single realization. The temple was never made of stone. It was always made of mind. You have been walking toward yourself all along. Each law you've studied, each metaphor you've decoded, was not describing the universe. It was describing your own structure. Every Hermetic text is a mirror. Every mirror is a lesson. The Corpus Hermeticum spoke of the nous, the divine intelligence within all things. The Kybalion called it the universal mind. Both were pointing to the same center, the awareness through which everything arises, the observer that no illusion can touch. And now, after all these words, you can feel that center, the still radiant point that watches without judgment, the consciousness behind your eyes. That is the temple. The ancients built their sanctuaries in alignment with the stars, so that the sun's first light would strike the altar at dawn. But what they truly sought to align was not architecture, it was awareness. They were constructing mirrors of the cosmos to remind humanity of its own divinity. You don't need a temple of stone anymore. You carry the architecture within you. Every breath is an altar, every thought, a pillar, every act of awareness, a beam of light illuminating the invisible. This is why Hermeticism never dies, because its true sanctuary cannot be destroyed. It lives wherever mind remembers itself as divine. When you think consciously, you are praying without words. When you choose awareness over reaction, you are offering gold to the altar of rhythm. When you love in the face of polarity, you are performing alchemy. You are the continuation of every initiate who ever lived. The fire that once burned in Egypt, that glowed in Alexandria, that flickered in Renaissance manuscripts, that pulsed through the Kybalion, now burns quietly inside your attention. This is not poetry. It is the literal transmission of vibration through time. You are the point where the spiral completes one turn and begins another. You are the bridge between memory and possibility. This is why Hermetic wisdom insists on presence, because presence is the only doorway that leads beyond illusion. There is no future initiation. There is only this breath. And when you breathe consciously, you are standing in the center of the temple, the axis between heaven and earth, the mirror where God sees itself. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the pulse behind your heartbeat. That rhythm is the same rhythm that moves galaxies, the same vibration that carries light through space, the same consciousness that spoke through Thoth, that dreamed through Hermes, that writes now through you. The one mind has no distance between its thoughts. Every consciousness is a ray of that same sun, momentarily forgetting its source, only to remember again through awakening. You are remembering now, and that remembrance is the initiation. This is why every Hermetic journey ends in silence, because what can be said is only the echo of what has been realized. The true transmission happens in stillness, the moment when the seeker and the sought dissolve into one presence. It is here that the final veil lifts. There is no path. There is only the return to awareness. The mind is the temple, the heart is the altar, and attention is the offering. All laws converge here. Mentalism, you are the mind that thinks the world. Correspondence, the inner and outer are one. Vibration, you are the hum of existence. Polarity, your shadow and your light are two ends of the same flame. Rhythm, you rise and fall, but you never leave the flow. Cause and effect, every choice you make reshapes creation. Gender, every act of awareness gives birth to reality anew. 7 laws, one consciousness, you. Now you understand what the Hermetic masters meant when they said, "The lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding." You are those ears now. You are that understanding. You are the living scroll of the Hermetic code. The book has never been outside of you. It is written in your perception line by line every time you awaken. The fire that remembers has become the light that knows. The cycle is complete and beginning again. If this journey reached you, if you felt even for a moment that silence speaking inside, then declare it. Write in the comments, "I am the temple." That is not a sentence. It is a seal. It anchors this vibration in you. It connects you with every other consciousness walking the same invisible path. If you've made it this far, you are already part of the circle, the silent community of minds remembering themselves. And remember, the next video is not another video. It is the next chamber of this same temple, the next octave of the same law. Do not stop here. The spiral is still turning. Step through the next portal. The fire continues, and so do you.